Coming up, it may be the month of August, but do you know what your tribe called this time of year before the calendar was introduced? One expert tells us about the Hopi story. Plus, Amber Midthunder is back on television screens after her hit movie, Prey, and more on natives taking a deep dive into policy and the future. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. Working with award-winning professors, Cronkite students learn news reporting, social media, shooting and editing videos, and producing content for communications industries. Cronkite's 15 professional programs give students the opportunity to cover critical issues throughout the U.S. and beyond. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Go'atsi Hopa. Thank you for joining us. We start in the Southwest, where the Navajo Nation election office is in the middle of an expensive recount. Some 47,000 ballots cast by tribal citizens are currently being counted by hand and by tabulation machines. This is happening after 3 Navajo presidential candidates requested a recount after reportedly observing inconsistencies at ballot locations on Election Day in early August. The week-long recount process is costing the nation close to $200,000. Experts say this large of a recount has never happened before. The August primary election showed current President Jonathan Nez and former vice presidential candidate Boo Nygren as the top 2 candidates. But already questions remain about the election process on Navajo. To recount observers, they say it appears the election process is not standardized. The recount is set to be completed by Friday. A new report says several factors are causing a crisis that is overly affecting Indigenous people. APTN's Fraser Needham reports.
The report looks at data compiled in 2021 and shows the per capita rate of homelessness is 3 times as high in some northern communities such as Cochrane when compared to a major urban center like Ottawa. Holly Parsons wrote the report for the Northern Policy Institute.
Northerners and myself included have noticed an increase of people struggling with homelessness, addiction, and mental health in our community. For me in Sudbury, so it was interesting to see that the data in fact matched that observation, and that this is a kind of worsening crisis.
And the numbers also show the majority of those experiencing the crisis are Indigenous.
In the district of Kenora, 88% of their homeless population self-identify as Indigenous. And in fact, there were 5 northern districts that had over 60% of their homeless population self-identify as Indigenous.
Other parts of the report show the direct correlation between homelessness, opioid addiction, and mental health issues. It makes a number of recommendations, including the creation of a Northern Service Hub, establishing a Northern Mental Health and Addiction Center, and support for community housing facilities for Indigenous people. Parsons says it is key Northern people play an active role in designing this programming.
We need something specific to Northern Ontario because service delivery looks so different up here, and because one-size-fits-all policies don't normally work for Northern Ontario.
Fraser Needham, AP10 National News, Ottawa.
In Massachusetts, Native Americans are calling for a boycott of a living history museum. The museum features colonial reenactors portraying life in Plymouth, which is the English settlement founded by the Pilgrims who arrived on the Mayflower. This doesn't sit well with some Wampanoag citizens who say the Plymouth Patuxet Museums doesn't provide European and Indigenous stories equally. They say the Native side of the outdoor museum is small, needs repairs, and is staffed by too few Indigenous people. Aquinnah Wampanoag citizen Camille Madison says they want the staff to find a way to respect Indigenous knowledge and experience. A spokesperson for the museum says the organization is planning several changes to the site, but declined to say what they are. Well, an Indigenous backed energy company is seeking more than $38 million for an abandoned project. Natural Law Energy is a group that represents a number of Indigenous communities in Western Canada. It is asking for financial compensation for its losses of income, plus lost opportunities for future income from TC Energy Corporation. The company lost this income in early 2021 after President Joe Biden halted construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. According to reporting by Bloomberg, TC Energy said it had a long-standing relationship with the tribal nations who signed on to Natural Law Energy and remains committed to working with its stakeholders for future opportunities. Well, at least 10 Indigenous high school athletes from different states are claiming the prestigious Gatorade Player of the Year award. This award is determined by a player's athletic excellence, academic achievement, and character. It was established in 1985. Every year since, the nation's best athletes are presented with the honor. What's amazing is that more Indigenous high school athletes were chosen this year than in the last 10 years combined. One of those included an Athabascan High School basketball player, Stuart Earhart. In an interview with ICT, he said the award provided a boost not only to himself, but the entire community. Earhart added that his ties to his native culture is what allows him to remain strong. Another recipient this year includes a citizen of the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. Tenley Grisham was given the honor as Mississippi's Softball Player of the Year. Grisham credited her community for putting in 110%. Congratulations to all Indigenous athletes who are being recognized. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, Reservation Dogs adds more Indigenous stars to its cast. Plus, there's another perspective from creative natives at the Santa Fe Indian Market. But first, the Natwani Coalition shares its agricultural calendar with us. That includes sharing the name of the month that we now call August. We'll be right back with that interview. Native nations have marked the passing of time in a variety of ways. For the Hopi people, the seasons are tied to the agricultural cycle as well as the religious cycle. The Natwani Coalition is a nonprofit organization located on the Hopi Reservation in northern Arizona. Its mission is to strengthen Hopi agriculture and food systems. Kyle Natumya is the program manager for the organization, and he joins us now. Welcome, Kyle.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So we've been teasing the show since we started the show today with wondering what the Hopi call this time of year. Before the month of what we now know as August, what did the Hopi people call it?
Well, for my bringing in, well, I guess before I continue, when I speak about what I know here, it's not, I don't speak on behalf of all Hopi people. So this comes from, community members I spoke to, family members. But as to your question, what this time of the year is pertaining to agriculture, because there may be some other names that will be regarding ceremonial times of the year. But for us here, the Natwini Coalition, we'll typically refer to it as Dala Pamoya, is the month of August.
Could you maybe talk about the importance of corn to the Hopi people during this time of year?
All of Hopi of life and religion, its entire cycle revolves around Hopi as one of its key staples of life. It's the thing that sustained Hopi for at least 1,000 years and probably longer than that. So in so many ways, we consider ourselves corn as well. It's our mom. When you're born, that you have your mom, she literally lays with you. That corn will be given to you, and it's considered your mom as well. And then she'll be with you. And also, just as our entire life, we consider ourselves as just a mirror of corn. So when corn grows, when you plant it in the ground, it's small like us when we're kids. When we grow up, tall like them. And eventually when they get older, the corn, their leaves will reach out and touch the earth. And we think of that as like support. And so when you think of getting older, when you start to maybe lean forward a little bit and maybe you have like a cane or something. So we consider that as just a mirror of, we see ourselves as the same thing. So we're just, everything in Hopi is revolved around corn. It's everything is just, it's the foundation of pretty much Hopi for the most part.
How many types of corn are planted each year?
Well, it's a little bit hard to say depending on the farmers out here, but it's Typically, you'll find at least two very common ones. There's the blue corn and the white corn. Those are probably what you'll see most planted. But there are more than that. There are six main varieties of corn, I guess. There's a blue, there's a white, there's a yellow, there's a red, there's a purple one, and then there's also one that's like a sweet corn, so it's more of a brownish, earthy looking color. So those were the six main corns that are also coordinated with our six directions. But as to your question, what's mostly planted out here corn-wise is you'll see a lot of blue and corn a lot.
After fall, of course, in the Gregorian calendar, we of course celebrate the new year as January 1st. But for the Hopi, when is your new year?
So our new year is for the winter solstice, and that takes part during the month of Galmia. So the solstice is typically the early part or late part of December, December 21st or something like that. So during that moon cycle, um, the winter solstice will happen. And for us, that's the new year because the shortest days of the year have ended. And after that, the days start getting longer. So we consider that as the cycle kind of starting over again. So when we do that too, when the new year happens for us, what a lot of people do, what a lot of villages will do, they'll make a lot of noise with rattles. They'll run with bells and go early in the morning to maybe go pray to the sun. And what we consider that is that we're waking up the earth again. We're trying to wake her back up. We're sending our vibrations to the ground so we can let her know that we're out and about again. Because prior to that, we were a little bit dormant. We get quiet before that. We don't try to do a whole lot of activities. But yeah, for our new year, it's the winter solstice.
We only have a short time left here, but I'm really curious if you can maybe provide some context for us about how integrated this knowledge is for Hopi communities. I mean, is this something that elders talk about a lot, and how are you incorporating that to young people and to children?
Well, for me, just like a lot of people, I guess you're just kind of around it growing up, just like anything else, any other person in the world. If it's around you, um, you'll, you'll digest it. It'll just be kind of your daily life. I'm fortunate to have some older people that I've been around and listened to them talk and such. But as far as integrating it with like our work, we really try to bridge a gap between the youth and the elderly because no, for one thing, the No Winning Coalition doesn't see itself as a teacher, a technical teacher, I guess, of farming knowledge and food saving and things like that. There's a traditional system already set in place, so we try to support that and we try to bridge those gaps as much as possible through various ways.
Well, Kyle, I've learned so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks again for having me.
Season 2 of Reservation Dogs is out. It includes a handful of Indigenous guest stars, and one of them is making headlines for her fierce acting in Hulu's #1 movie premiere called Prey. Amber Midthunder is back to break down her latest project. Amber, I mean, first off, congratulations on your recent success with Prey. What an amazing performance. You're keeping the engines going, and now you're starring in Res Dogs. Can you tell us more about your upcoming appearance and what audiences can expect?
I was excited to be a guest on this episode. And I mean, the character that I play, Miss Matriarch, she's a TikToker who comes to like a youth event to try to like help the youth. And she's a lot of fun. I think the like reservation dogs, you see really real characters in like a very real world, and then they have these experiences and interactions with people that are just like don't even seem real. And it, I think, kind of, can like take a picture of, but that's like what is funny is like she really genuinely believes that she is doing the right thing. Like she really believes that this is the best way to help. And you see like the res dogs go through like the different events and the activities.
What are some of the differences and similarities of being on the set?
Yeah, I mean, just having these experiences so close together and being on sets that have like so many native people to me was so cool. I mean, I had never really experienced that until Prey, and then going to Res Dogs where it was people who were in front of and behind and in, on the crew and just everywhere, and being like, the show is about like Oklahoma tribes and we're in Oklahoma, like, that's like Sterling's home. So just that kind of stuff was like, to me, that was so cool. And that feels like stuff that, you don't even think about or you don't even think is possible. And then you're there experiencing it. And that was definitely a feeling that was like infectious to be around that many Native people in my workspace where like I feel passionate about what I'm doing. And then to be around other people who can, have that same level of comfort or familiarity or, and then share like the excitement of like the work and the passion.
How impactful is it to you to be part of multiple projects that reshape the Native narrative?
And I feel so grateful. I mean, I've just been a fan of Reservation Dogs since the beginning. Like I was shooting Prey in Canada when the first season came out. So I was like using my VPN to watch it as it came out. So I didn't have to wait. So I was just so excited and so proud that the show existed. So to get to be a part of it, like to get to be in an episode was just so like I was so excited, just like as a fan of the show. And then, obviously very proud of Prey and kind of what we've made. And I'm excited to see, more things along those lines, like people making stories that we are proud of and that we get to tell and that represent us, how we want to be represented.
Your mom is actually the casting director for Res Dogs. What was that like working with her?
I just auditioned, like when I got a self-tape request from her office and then sent my self-tape. So the only time I really like interacted with her in a work environment was like she was doing callbacks and I had to call back the TASBA. But it's just kind of funny because like my mom is just a very professional person. She just, like she takes her work very seriously. She has a lot of respect for the people she works with. So she's very professional and I like to poke fun at the fact that we're family because, we are and everybody knows that. Um, she's never been the kind of person who like I feel like anytime I audition for her, it's like there's not any kind of like being put ahead. If anything, I feel like she like wants to be harder on me, which I think is like I think that that's fair and like growing up, looking back, I'm like really grateful for that. But now I think it's funny, like, to go in and audition and like have stuff like that where it's like we both know. And I think it's funny to like call her mom or like make jokes. And she's just very like, we're in a casting environment and we were working.
What was your favorite part of working on Res Dogs?
Oh my God. Just everybody, like seeing it happen, like seeing the show come together. Cause like I said, like I'm a fan of the show. Like it was so cool to me to like watch this thing that I just an audience member and then get to go and see how it's put together, like you hear stories and you see like the cast all together, you see the filmmakers and like even just like everyone's so funny on Instagram, like the stuff that they post and seeing that and like seeing it happen in front of you and you're like, wow, like it's all real. Like everyone is truly just so real from like the characters that they're playing to the scenes that are being written to like the relationships that are like everybody like actually just like being friends and being supportive of each other, like also just like being really funny, like all that stuff coming together was like cool to me to like see people who I have known for a while or who I think are my who my friends, and then to meet people that I've never met before and see like this thing come together that I'm just a fan of.
What does the future of the film industry look like for you? What was it like to work with other Native creatives on both sets?
Storytelling is our medium. Like that's what we have been doing since the beginning. That's how we have kept our cultures, our languages, our histories alive. We all come from oral people. So I think when you look at something like filmmaking or storytelling, I mean, this is our medium. Like it belongs to us. Everyone else is working inside of our territory. So I think we have the freedom to make whatever we please and to do whatever we want. And there's so much power that comes with that, and there's so much I think that is available. And now I think other people are starting to just like see the tip of the iceberg of how valuable native people are and native artists are and the like untapped resource that we offer, perspective um and also like giving ourselves the permission to take up that space and to really feel the freedom to not be afraid and to just go out and claim it and to do whatever we want.
Episode 6, where Amber Midthunder stars, airs starting Wednesday on Hulu. The Santa Fe Indian Market features the best Indigenous, contemporary, and traditional artists throughout the country. It also features so much more. Scores of Native-led organizations hold workshops, concerts, and other events. Holly Cook-Macaro was on location with a panel called Indigenous Futures. She's a partner with Spirit Rock Consulting and is also now officially a board member of ICT's parent company, Indig Public Media. Hi, Holly. Thanks so much for being here again.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So let's start off with your panel that, of course, was sponsored by Illuminatives. Tell us what was on it and what kinds of conversations you were having.
Well, the panel was the Indigenous Futures Project, and all of the panels were really about envisioning the next 100 years in concert with the celebration of the 100-year anniversary of Indian Market. So the panel that I was on was really about voting and organizing and building Indigenous power. And I shared the stage with some real, I've said this before, they're thought leaders and just people who get things done in Indian country. It was with Crystal Echohawk, the founder and CEO of Illuminative, Nick Tilson, the founder and CEO of Indian Collective, and Judith LeBlanc, who leads the Native Organizers Alliance, all real leading voices on a number of issues. And as we move into these midterm elections, playing a huge role in how GOTV and messaging and Indian country looks towards November 8th.
How much of a conversation, or I guess what was the reaction of people who attended this panel? Because I think we typically think of Indian Market as something that's all about art and fashion and music, but to talk about voting, and it sounds like building Native political power is something that you wouldn't think of if you were thinking of the Indian Market.
That's a great point. And I think what the whole Indigenous Futures panel through Illuminative was able to put together added an additional element to Indian Market. Well, there were all of the booths, all of the fantastic events, and what I just thought was a real sense of joy this year, I think, in everyone being back, Indian Market feeling like it was full on. The Illuminative event really added an additional dimension, and the conversation that you could partake in while you maybe took a rest from walking around the plaza or had spent all your money by noon, which some folks I know that happened to. So we the feedback I know was very good, and there were several panels over 2 days. So it wasn't just about voting. There was a panel from the film industry, Jane Myers and Amber Midthunder, who just did Pray, which was extraordinary. And then kind of the leading voices in the industry with Sierra Teller Arnellis, Bobby Wilson, the Janice Schmieding, all of the folks doing such great work. They were all very well received, and I think added a terrific dimension to the overall feel of Indian Market this year.
Let's jump over to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., of course. Tell us about any legislation, any kinds of things that you're hearing that we should be watching for coming up.
Well, we are heading into the end. We are in the very end of summer recess. So Congress will be back in just a few days. And coming up, they have to pass a bill to fund the government. We expect them to go out by the end of the month in order to campaign for re-election or support those in their caucuses who are running for re-election. So what we have coming up is a funding bill. It's likely to be a continuing resolution into December that would allow them time to come back, negotiate, work on any other issues. So at the top of the list right now is a long-time priority for Indian country, and that is advance appropriations for the Indian Health Service. It may seem like a bit just of a technical thing that wouldn't have much impact on our tribal communities, but there's a direct impact as a result of advance appropriations for the Indian Health Service. Now, advance appropriations are simply agreements or contracts to provide funding at a later date. But without those agreements, without Congress's authorization to get that done, we are susceptible to shutdowns when the government shuts down. That means that our communities either are denied or delayed services, which is horrible to think of in the year 2022. So advance appropriations, direct on the ground impacts for our communities, and the provision and certainty of our health care services through the IHS. That's a priority and something that I know will be really talked about and worked on as we move towards the end of the Congress.
Well, we only have about 30 seconds left, Holly, but of course I mentioned you're now a board member for ICT's parent company. What is your reaction to that, and what are you hoping to achieve while you're on the board?
Well, I'm very excited to join the board of Indig Media, the parent company of ICT. I've watched the Indian Country Today Media Network, Indian Country Today, just the evolution over the past few years has been remarkable. And ICT's voice has always been important, the foundational provision of Indian country oriented news. And I'm just very excited to join the board, the terrific folks who are on there, and really looking forward to working with the team at ICT.
Well, we're excited to have you, Holly. I should just mention, for journalistic integrity, we'll continue having you on the show as a regular contributor, of course, with the most professional relationship from source to source. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Aaliyah.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.